And in a fairness, we're giving the mind I'm giving the mind a bad press, but we are in a sense, but it's only doing its job. But do you know why? And do you know why? Because we're not, apart from, the knowledge, we need to have the knowledge, we need to be able to be aware of what what you and I have just been talking about. We've got to have the basics, right? But what we tend to do is we tend to send the mind into bat straight away. He's the first into bat, right? Now you send the mind first into bat, right? And the ego comes out and he's swailing, he's hitting a few sixes, and then he sort of, hits his own wicket or something. Do you see what I'm saying? Well, then it's all over, right?
I like your point about giving the mind a bad press. It's like the bad dog. As my hero, the dog whisperer, would say, there's no such thing, it's not a bad dog, it's a bad master.
Yeah, sure.
Mistress,
Sure.
It's, if the mind is being bad,
it's just a tool.
It's because we have allowed it to go out of control, and we have not.
But I think there is another, but I would say this, there is another element here, and this is not absolving me or anyone else from blame, but we do come into a physical world where, at the age at which we should be thinking, and we've talked about this before, we should be being taught that we're spiritual beings, that we are not just physical beings, we're not just mind-based beings. If we had that, what actually happens, as right, 0 to 7, the formative years, we are straight into literally mental arithmetic. Literally, that's what happens. And that is the classic, if you like, I'm using that as an example, but we're taught to live a mind-based reality.
Absolutely.
And that's really what we're talking about.
Obviously, advertising is the key thing where, there's people working on our minds in order to dictate to us what we should want out of life. And that's the way the world operates, and
we are totally molded and conditioned to fit that base.
So you're quite right. I have said we're bad masters, but we're in a world which glorifies it,
and we choose it, and that's our choice. Now the key is, of course, what you and I are talking about is fantastic, because now we can say and people watching this can say, okay, right, now this is another way here now. There is another way.
There is another way.
So you have a choice.
It doesn't have to be
like
that.
It doesn't have to be like that. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's.
And it would be nice. First of all, we've got to work on ourselves. Sort out all the things that trouble our own minds, so that our minds are clear.
But if what you say is true, it's a bit like training the dog. Then in a sense it ought to be. Okay, perhaps I'm being a little optimistic here, but it ought to be. It ought to be an easier process than perhaps we would have ourselves believe, and bear with me when I'm trying to explain this, on the basis of quantity rather than quality. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, go back to the Bhagavad Gita on this. Arjuna turns to Krishna and says, you're asking me to control the mind, but actually it sounds more difficult than controlling the wind. Because we're not talking, my association with the mind isn't just for the few short years of this body.
Yes.
It goes back to all the time that the soul has been within the material sphere. It has been accompanied by that mind.
Absolutely, and we've gone through it.
And we've filled it lifetime after lifetime. Yeah. So the conditioning is deep. So Krishna says, yep, it is difficult. But it is possible through constant practice and detachment. Need the two things. We need to kind of constantly work at it.
Yes.
A little bit of effort, and it'll, quickly the mind will kind of get back to its state. It's like a dog. You can't just correct it once and think that tomorrow it's going to be fine. It needs to be reinforced again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
And also detachment. Unless we have the understanding that the mind is not me.
Yes.
It is not even necessarily my friend.
Yes.
Never mind not being me. It is not necessarily in its current state.
Yeah.
It is a bad dog, and it needs to get a training, and then it becomes my friend. Then I can, again, the dog whisperer is a fantastic analogy of this, because he often says to the the owners that you're thinking of this dog as you. It's like human like you. No, you've got to think of it, in its own psychology, its own doggy kind of world, and you've got to stop trying to be, its friend and its equal. You've got to actually, be dominant, as he would say,
Yes.
and put it in its place. And then once it becomes balanced, in his words,
Yes.
then you can offer it the affection,
Yes.
and then all the good things in the relationship will manifest.
Yes.
But it can't manifest when it's out of control.
Yes.
So it's like that constant practice and detachment, and the mind can be brought under control.
If only we understood that having pets was
as enlightening as that.
was as enlightening as that, and to enable us to understand our minds and actually to apply our minds,
Yeah.
quite literally. Oh dear, marvellous stuff. Beautiful.